Admiral Zhou pressed his gloved hand against the observation deck's cold metal railing. Below him, a small blue planet spun peacefully in the void. Earth. Such a simple name for what his people considered just another backwater world. Status. "Report," he commanded, not taking his eyes off the swirling white clouds. His communications officer, Commander Veltar, approached with a data tablet. "Sir, preliminary scans confirm our expectations. The inhabitants have barely achieved orbital flight. Their most advanced vessels use chemical propulsion, crude rocket technology at best. Population centers show basic electromagnetic emissions. No faster-than-light capability detected." Zhou nodded slowly. It was always the same story. Another. Young species taking their first tentative steps into space, completely unaware they were being watched by civilizations that had mastered interstellar travel thousands of years ago. The Zephyrian Confederation had encountered dozens of worlds like this. The protocol was simple and efficient. "Initiate standard integration procedures," the Admiral ordered. "Class C civilization status. Begin cultural assessment protocols." Far below on Earth's surface, Dr. Hyejin Kim was having the strangest night of her career. The Seoul National Observatory had always been her sanctuary, a place where the universe made sense through mathematics and physics. Tonight, nothing made sense at all. She adjusted the massive telescope's focus for the 100th time, but the objects remained impossibly clear in her view. 3 enormous structures hung motionless in Earth's upper atmosphere, each one easily the size of a small city. They didn't reflect sunlight like satellites should. Instead, they seemed to absorb light, creating dark silhouettes against the starfield. "Dr. Kim," her research assistant Minho called from across the control room, his voice tight with worry. "I've been monitoring radio frequencies like you asked. There's nothing. No electromagnetic signatures, no heat displacement, no gravitational disturbance. It's like those things aren't even there." Hyejin wiped sweat from her forehead despite the cool night air. "That's impossible. Objects that size should be affecting tidal patterns, satellite orbits, everything. Yet our instruments say space is empty." She picked up the red phone, the direct line to the Ministry of Science and Technology. Within hours, observatories across Asia were confirming the same impossible sight. Beijing reported 4 objects. Tokyo counted 6. Every telescope pointed skyward revealed the same terrifying truth. Earth was being watched, while Earth scientists struggled to understand what they were seeing deep in space. Something far more disturbing was unfolding. The Confederation's archaeological expedition had been routinely surveying the outer regions of this solar system when they stumbled upon structures that shouldn't exist. Dr. Yuna, the expedition's lead archaeologist, floated in her environmental suit near what appeared to be a massive installation built into the surface of Pluto. The structure was ancient. That much was clear from the crystallized metal and the way cosmic radiation had weathered its outer hull. But the technology embedded within its walls was more advanced than anything in the Confederation's databases. "Command, this is Survey Team Alpha," she spoke into her helmet communicator. "We've discovered artificial structures throughout the outer system. Pluto, several asteroids, even what appears to be a concealed facility on one of the gas giant's moons." Admiral Zhou's voice crackled back through subspace. "Acknowledged, Survey Team. Age assessment." Dr. Yuna ran her scanner along a section of the hull, watching the readout with growing confusion. "Sir, initial dating suggests these installations are at least 50,000 years old, possibly much older. But Admiral—" She paused, double-checking her instruments. "The power signatures are still active. These structures aren't dead ruins. They're dormant." Back in the command ship, Zhou felt his confidence wavering. In 3 decades of exploration, the Confederation had never encountered evidence of a civilization more advanced than their own. Their technology represented the pinnacle of galactic achievement. Yet here, in this supposedly primitive system, ancient structures hummed with power that dwarfed their own capabilities. On Earth, the impossible became routine. Dr. Jinwoo Park, working late in his laboratory at Seoul National University, noticed the first gravitational anomalies just after midnight. His sensitive equipment designed to detect the faintest ripples in space-time, began registering patterns that violated every law of physics he knew. The gravitational waves weren't random. They pulsed in regular intervals, sweeping across Earth's surface like invisible searchlights. More disturbing still, the waves seemed to intensify whenever Jinwoo moved closer to his computer terminal, as if they were somehow aware of his presence. "This can't be right," he muttered, running the calculations for the third time. The energy required to generate gravitational distortions of this magnitude should have been visible across half the galaxy. Yet their mysterious visitors accomplished it without any detectable power source. His phone buzzed with an emergency message from the International Physics Consortium. Similar readings were being recorded at laboratories worldwide. Whatever was happening above Earth's atmosphere, it was affecting the fundamental forces that held reality together. Young astronomer Ha-un made perhaps the most unsettling discovery of all. Working alone at the radio telescope facility outside Busan, she had been monitoring deep space frequencies when she detected something that made her blood run cold. Hidden within the cosmic background radiation, the faint echo of the universes. Birth was a signal, not random noise but a clear repeating pattern that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her own heartbeat. When she held her breath, the signal slowed. When her pulse quickened with excitement, the transmission accelerated to match. Something vast and intelligent was watching humanity, learning from them, responding to their very life signs. The first contact protocols of the Zephyrian Confederation had never accounted for this possibility. They were no longer the most advanced civilization in this encounter. Dr. Yuna had been inside the Pluto installation for 3 days now, and every hour brought new impossibilities. The structure stretched deep into the dwarf planet's core, its corridors lit by panels that responded to her presence with soft, welcoming light. The air inside was perfectly breathable, maintained by systems that had been running flawlessly for thousands of years. She ran her gloved fingers along the smooth walls, marveling at the material. It felt warm to the touch, almost alive. Scanners couldn't identify its composition. The atomic structure shifted whenever she tried to analyze it, as if the walls were actively resisting her instruments. "Personal log day 3, she spoke into her recorder. "The installation's layout defies conventional architecture. Corridors branch and merge in patterns that shouldn't be structurally sound, yet the entire complex feels perfectly stable. More disturbing, I've discovered chambers that seem to respond to my thoughts. When I think about needing rest, doorways open to reveal sleeping quarters. When I'm hungry, another passage leads to what can only be described as a food synthesis chamber." The most unsettling discovery waited in the facility's central hub. A massive crystalline structure rose from floor to ceiling, pulsing with soft blue energy. As Dr. Yuna approached, holographic displays materialized in the air around her, showing what appeared to be star charts and mathematical equations far beyond her understanding. "Admiral," she radioed back to the command ship, "I think this installation is trying to communicate with me. The displays change based on where I look, what I touch. It's like the entire structure is one enormous computer, and it's been waiting for someone to wake it up." Admiral Kethvar's response carried obvious concern. "Dr. Yuna, I want you to maintain safe distance from any active systems. We have no idea what we're dealing with," but it was already too late. Similar installations throughout the solar system were stirring to life, responding to signals that rippled outward from Pluto like stones dropped in still water. On Earth, Dr. Jinwoo Park was working through his 4th consecutive sleepless night when the gravitational distortions suddenly intensified. His laboratory's sensitive equipment went wild, registering waves of warped space-time that washed over the planet in regular pulses. "Soo-jin," he called to his research partner, who was reviewing data at the next workstation. "Look at these readings. The gravitational waves aren't just random anymore. They're forming patterns, geometric shapes, mathematical sequences. It's like someone is writing messages in the fabric of space itself." Dr. Soo-jin Lee pulled up the data on her screen, her eyes widening as she traced the patterns. "Jinwoo, these aren't just messages. Look at this sequence here. It's the solution to the unified field theory we've been working on for years. And this one, It's showing us how to manipulate gravity directly. Around the world, similar discoveries were unfolding. At CERN, particle accelerators detected exotic matter formations that appeared and vanished in microseconds. At the Arecibo, observatory radio telescopes picked up transmissions that seemed to originate from empty space itself. But nowhere were the changes more dramatic than in the minds of Earth's scientists and engineers. Dr. Hee-Jin Kim woke from restless sleep with equations blazing in her mind, formulas for faster-than-light travel that she somehow understood perfectly despite never having seen them before. She stumbled to her desk and began writing frantically, her hand moving across page after page as if guided by an invisible force. "What's happening to me?" she whispered, staring at the complex mathematical proofs covering her desk. The equations were beyond anything in human physics textbooks, yet they felt as familiar as her own name. Materials scientist Dr. Yoon-ji Park experienced something similar in her Seoul laboratory. She found herself unconsciously mixing compounds that shouldn't exist, creating metallic alloys that remained stable at impossible temperatures. When she tested their properties, the results defied every law of chemistry she knew. "The atomic bonds shouldn't hold," she muttered, examining her latest creation under an electron microscope. "But somehow, I knew exactly how to make them work. It's like the knowledge was already in my head, just waiting to be unlocked." Young astronomer Ha-Yun made perhaps the most disturbing discovery. The strange signal she'd detected in the cosmic background radiation wasn't just responding to her heartbeat anymore. It was anticipating it. The transmission would speed up seconds before her pulse quickened, slow down before she even realized she was calming down. She sat alone in the radio telescope facility, headphones pressed to her ears as she listened to the alien rhythm. "You're not just watching us," she whispered to the signal. "You're learning from us, but what are you trying to teach us in return?" The answer came in dreams that plagued scientists across the globe, visions of vast star maps showing the locations of worlds scattered throughout the galaxy, images of technologies that could heal any disease, extend human life indefinitely, or provide unlimited clean energy. Blueprints for machines that could reshape matter at the atomic level or open doorways to distant stars. Dr. Tae Young, a geneticist at Yonsei University, woke from one such dream with tears streaming down his face. He'd seen something impossible. Human genetic patterns scattered across dozens of alien worlds, as if humanity's children had somehow spread throughout the galaxy eons ago. "We're not alone," he whispered to his empty laboratory. "We were never alone." But if these visions are true, then everything we think we know about human history is wrong. Back in space, Admiral Kethvar received reports that chilled him to the bone. The installations weren't just on Pluto anymore. His survey teams had located similar structures throughout the solar system, all awakening simultaneously. More troubling still. Several of the technologies they'd discovered matched systems used by member species of the Confederation itself. "Sir," Commander Veltar approached with a classified data pad. "We've completed genetic analysis of the installation's biolocks. The security systems are keyed to human DNA patterns, but not just modern humans. The template includes genetic markers we've only seen in 3 of our member species. The implications hit Kethvar like a physical blow. If the installations were designed for humans, and if Confederation species shared human genetic markers, then the primitive world below might not be primitive at all. It might be the forgotten homeworld of the galaxy's most ancient civilization. The sleeping giants were waking up, and they remembered who they'd been waiting for. The accident happened so fast that Dr. Yuna barely had time to register what was occurring. She had been carefully examining a section of crystalline matrix deep within the Pluto installation when her environmental suit's glove caught on a protruding edge. The fabric tore, and her bare hand made direct contact with the alien crystal. The moment her skin touched the surface, everything changed. Pain shot through her arm like lightning, but it wasn't the burning cold of Pluto's surface. Instead, warmth flooded through her body as the crystal began to glow with brilliant white light. The illumination spread outward from the point of contact, racing along conduits embedded in the walls like liquid fire. "What's happening?" She gasped into her radio, but the response from her team was drowned out by a sound she'd never heard before. a deep resonant hum that seemed to emanate from the installation itself. The entire structure was coming alive around her. Light raced through corridors she hadn't even explored yet, awakening systems that had slumbered for millennia. But the activation wasn't limited to her location. Throughout the solar system, every dormant installation suddenly blazed to life, sending cascading signals toward the small blue planet at the system's heart. On Earth, the change was immediate and overwhelming. Dr. Jinwoo Park was reviewing gravitational wave data when every instrument in his laboratory suddenly went silent. For a moment, the cosmic background noise that had filled his senses for weeks simply vanished. Then, like a tsunami of invisible energy, something vast swept across the planet. He felt it before his instruments detected it, a presence touching his mind with the gentleness of a whisper and the power of a hurricane. Images flooded his consciousness, star charts showing pathways between distant worlds, mathematical equations that revealed the fundamental structure of reality, blueprints for machines that could bend space and time. But these weren't random visions. They were lessons, carefully structured knowledge being transmitted directly into his brain. "Sujin," he called out, but his research partner was already experiencing her own awakening. She sat motionless at her workstation, her eyes wide and unfocused as streams of data filled her mind. When she finally blinked back to awareness, tears were streaming down her face. "I can see it," she whispered. "All of it. The unified field equations, quantum mechanics, stellar engineering. It's like someone opened a door in my head and showed me the universe as it really is." Similar scenes played out in laboratories and observatories across the globe. Dr. Hyejin Kim found herself understanding principles of faster-than-light travel that humanity wouldn't discover for centuries. Materials scientist Dr. Yunji suddenly knew how to create substances that existed only in theoretical physics papers. Young astronomer Hayun discovered she could predict stellar behavior with impossible accuracy. But the most profound changes were happening to those who had been listening most carefully to the strange signals. Dr. Tae Young, the geneticist who had been studying the anomalous DNA patterns, experienced something that shattered his understanding of human history. The visions that filled his mind weren't just about advanced technology. They were memories, ancient memories, of a human civilization that had once spanned the galaxy. He saw vast cities floating in space, their inhabitants living for centuries while exploring the deepest mysteries of the universe. He witnessed the construction of the installations, built not as weapons but as libraries, repositories of knowledge meant to preserve humanity's achievements for future generations. And he saw the catastrophe that had ended it all. The solar flares, he breathed, understanding flooding through him. A massive stellar event. Our sun went through an active period that lasted thousands of years. The radiation destroyed everything. Cities, ships, entire colonies. The survivors had to retreat to Earth and start over, but they lost almost everything. The installations hadn't been built by aliens. They were humanity's own legacy, left behind by their ancestors as a gift for the day when their descendants would be ready to reclaim the stars. Meanwhile, in space, Admiral Kethavar was dealing with a crisis that threatened everything the Confederation thought it knew about galactic history. "Sir," Dr. Yuna's voice crackled over the radio, "the installation is responding to me. The systems are coming online, but they're not hostile. They're welcoming. It's like they've been waiting for someone like me to arrive." "Someone like you?" Kethavar asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Someone human, Admiral. The biolocks, the genetic scanners, the activation protocols, they're all keyed to human DNA. This technology was built by humans, for humans, but not the primitive humans we see on Earth today. This is the work of an advanced human civilization that existed long before our earliest historical records." The implications were staggering. If ancient humans had built these installations, and if they had been advanced enough to create technology that surpassed even the Confederation's achievements, then everything they thought they knew about galactic development was wrong. Commander Veltar approached with an expression of barely controlled panic. "Admiral, we've received reports from 3 of our member worlds. The Kepler colonies, the Vega settlements, and the Proxima outposts are all reporting unusual genetic activations among their populations. Citizens are experiencing the same knowledge. Downloads we're observing on Earth. Genetic activations. Sir, detailed analysis confirms that significant portions of those populations carry ancient human genetic markers. They're not separate species that evolved independently. They're the descendants of human colonies that lost contact with Earth millennia ago. The truth hit Kethvar like a physical blow. The Confederation wasn't a collection of diverse alien species that had developed spaceflight independently. It was largely composed of lost human colonies that had forgotten their origins over thousands of years of isolation. Earth wasn't a primitive world they were discovering. It was the home world they had all forgotten. Back on Earth, Dr. Ha-Yun made the discovery that would change everything. Deep in the alien transmissions, she found something that made her heart race with excitement and terror in equal measure. "It's not just knowledge," she announced to the emergency assembly of Earth's leading scientists. "The installations aren't just teaching us about technology, they're offering it to us. Complete technological packages that would advance human civilization by thousands of years overnight." She pulled up the data on her screen, showing massive construction blueprints and manufacturing protocols. "We could build starships that travel faster than light. We could construct habitats that house millions of people in perfect comfort. We could develop weapons that could—" She paused, her face growing pale. "We could develop weapons that could destroy entire star systems." The ancient humans hadn't just left behind libraries. They had left behind the tools to rebuild their empire. The question now was whether their descendants would use that knowledge wisely or repeat the mistakes of the past. The installations were offering humanity a choice: remain on their small blue world or reclaim their birthright as masters of the galaxy. Either way, the universe would never be the same. The emergency session in Geneva brought together the world's brightest minds in what would later be called the most important scientific gathering in human history. Dr. Tae-Young stood before the assembled crowd, his hands trembling as he held the genetic analysis that would change everything. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice barely steady, "what I'm about to share will challenge everything we thought we knew about human origins." He clicked to his first slide, showing DNA helixes spiraling across the screen. "Over the past week, we've analyzed genetic samples from Earth's population alongside data recovered from the ancient installations. The results are unprecedented." Dr. Hyejin Kim leaned forward in her seat, having experienced her own revelations during the installation activations. The knowledge flooding her mind had been overwhelming, but it was Tae-Young's research that would finally make sense of it all. Human DNA contains what we've previously considered to be junk sequences, genetic material that seemed to serve no purpose, Tae-Young continued. But these sequences aren't random, they're inactive instructions, dormant genetic programs that activate under specific conditions. The installations have been broadcasting the activation signals. He switched to the next slide, showing genetic comparisons that made several scientists gasp audibly. "We are not the first humans to reach the stars. We are the descendants of a galactic civilization that spanned hundreds of worlds. The installations were built by our own ancestors as a fail-safe, waiting for us to rediscover space travel so they could guide us home." In space, Admiral Kethvar was receiving reports that turned his understanding of the galaxy upside down. The Confederation fleet had been monitoring Earth's communications, and what they were learning shook the foundations of their society. "Sir," Commander Veltar approached with a data tablet, his usually composed demeanor cracking, "the genetic analysis results from our member worlds are in. The Kepler colonies show 89% genetic compatibility with Earth humans. The Vega settlements are 94% compatible. Proxima Centauri, 97%. Kethvar stared at the numbers, their implications sinking in slowly. "Are you telling me that 3 of our founding member species are actually human colonies that lost contact with their homeworld?" "It's worse than that, sir. We've now tested genetic samples from 7 Confederation worlds. All show significant human genetic markers. The mathematical probability of this occurring naturally is essentially 0. The Admiral walked to his observation window, staring down at the blue planet that had seemed so primitive just days ago. "How many of our member species are actually human colonies?" based on preliminary data, sir. Possibly all of them. Back on Earth, the awakening installations were revealing secrets that both amazed and terrified humanity's scientists. Dr. Jin-Woo Park had been studying the gravitational manipulation technology when he made a discovery that left him speechless. The power systems, he explained to his colleague Sujin, they're not just advanced, they're operating on principles we didn't even know existed. These installations can manipulate fundamental forces like gravity and electromagnetic fields as easily as we turn on a light switch. But it was Dr. Yoon-ji who uncovered the most disturbing aspect of their inheritance. Working in her materials laboratory, she had been following blueprints downloaded directly from the installations when she realized what she was building. These aren't just tools for exploration, she told the emergency committee via video link. From her lab, the installations contain complete manufacturing specifications for weapons that could crack planets in half, defensive systems that could create impenetrable barriers around entire star systems, military technology that makes our nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. The ancient humans hadn't just been explorers and scientists, they had been conquerors, armed with technology that could dominate any opposition. Young astronomer Ha Yun made perhaps the most chilling discovery while analyzing the deepest layers of the installation data streams. She found historical records, memory banks that chronicled the final days of the ancient human empire. They didn't fall because of natural disasters, she reported to the Global Scientific Council. The stellar flares, the solar activity, that was just what finished them off. They were already dying because they had turned their weapons on each other. The records show decades of civil war, human colonies fighting other human colonies across hundreds of star systems. Dr. Tae-young's voice was grim as he added context to her findings. The genetic analysis supports this. The dormant sequences in our DNA aren't just instructions for advanced technology, they're also behavioral triggers, genetic programs that enhanced aggression, territorial instincts, and dominance behaviors. Our ancestors didn't just build an empire. They built themselves into the perfect warriors to maintain it. The installations weren't just offering humanity their birthright. They were offering them the same tools and instincts that had ultimately destroyed their predecessors. Meanwhile, Confederation fleets were massing at the edge of the solar system, and Admiral Kethvar faced an impossible decision. If Earth's humans activated their ancient technology, they would instantly become the most powerful force in known space. The Confederation, built by their own lost colonies, would be helpless. To stop them. Options, Commander, he asked Veltar. Limited, sir. We could attempt to disable the installations before the humans fully activate them, but our weapons are based on their own ancient technology. We might not be able to damage systems built by the same civilization. Alternatively, we could evacuate Confederation space and hope they choose not to pursue us. And if they choose conquest? Veltar's silence was answer enough. On Earth, the debate raged in government chambers and scientific institutions worldwide. Dr. Hee-jin Kim found herself at the center of humanity's most crucial decision. We have the power to reclaim the galaxy, she addressed the United Nations emergency session. The installations offer us technology that would make us unstoppable. We could build fleets that travel between stars in days rather than years. We could establish colonies that would make Earth seem like a small village. We could become the dominant species in the galaxy within a single generation. But Dr. Ha-eun's research cast a shadow over these possibilities. The historical records are clear, she warned. Every time the ancient humans encountered resistance, they responded with overwhelming force. They didn't negotiate or compromise, they conquered, and eventually they turned that same approach on each other. The installations were patient, their alien intelligence waiting for humanity's choice. The knowledge was there for the taking, all the tools needed to rebuild an empire that could span the galaxy. But the question remained, would humanity be wise enough to use that power differently than their ancestors had, or were they doomed to repeat the same cycle of conquest and self-destruction? As Earth's leaders debated humanity's future, the ancient systems hummed with anticipation, ready to transform their descendants into either the galaxy's greatest hope or its most terrible threat. The choice would define not just humanity's destiny, but the fate of every intelligent species in known space. The Great Assembly Hall in Geneva had never hosted a meeting quite like this one. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat alongside holographic projections of Confederation leaders, while the ancient installations hummed with patient energy above them all. Dr. Xiao Jin stood at the podium, knowing that her next words would shape the future of not just humanity, but every intelligent species in the galaxy. "We stand at a crossroads that our ancestors never imagined," she began, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. "The installations offer us everything: unlimited power, advanced technology, the ability to reclaim an empire that once spanned hundreds of worlds. We could become the rulers of the galaxy within our own lifetimes." She paused, looking out at the faces watching her. Human leaders wrestling with impossible choices, alien representatives uncertain whether they were about to witness humanity's ascension or their own doom. But we've also seen where that path leads. The historical records don't lie. Our ancestors built an empire, and then they destroyed it through conquest and war. The question we must answer today is simple: are we wise enough to choose differently? In the weeks leading up to this moment, humanity had experienced the full awakening of their ancient inheritance. Engineer Minwu had been among the first to fully interface with the installation systems, and what he discovered there changed everything. "The technology isn't just advanced," he had reported to the Emergency Scientific Council. "It's designed specifically for domination. Automated fleet construction systems that can build thousands of warships without human oversight. Planetary bombardment weapons that can crack worlds from orbit. Mind control technologies that can subjugate entire populations." He had pulled up holographic displays showing the ancient human war machine in all its terrible glory. Our ancestors didn't just explore the galaxy, they conquered it systematically. Every species they encountered was given a choice: submit or be destroyed. Most chose submission. Dr. Ha Yun had uncovered even more disturbing details in the deepest archives. Working through sleepless nights, she had decoded records that painted a picture of an empire built on fear and maintained through overwhelming force. They called it the Great Expansion, she had told the Assembly during her preliminary report. But the records show it was really a campaign of systematic conquest. When they encountered the early Confederation species, our own lost colonies that had developed independently, they didn't recognize them as human descendants. They saw them as threats to be eliminated, or resources to be controlled. The irony was crushing. The Confederation that now waited nervously at the edge of the solar system was largely composed of human colonies that had been driven to the far reaches of space by their own ancestors' aggression. Admiral Kethvar's voice crackled through the communication system, tension evident even across the vast distance. "Earth delegates, our analysis confirms your historical findings. The installations contain weapons specifications that exceed our defensive capabilities by several orders of magnitude. If humanity chooses to activate these systems fully, the Confederation would be powerless to resist." Dr. Jin Wu had spent weeks studying the power generation systems that made such weapons possible. "The installations tap directly into quantum vacuum energy," he explained to anyone who would listen. "They can literally pull unlimited power from empty space itself. There's no defense against that level of technology, because it operates outside the physical laws we understand." But it was young Dr. Tae Young who made the discovery that would ultimately influence humanity's choice. Deep in the genetic programming sequences, he found something the ancient humans had hidden even from themselves. "There's a final protocol," he announced to the Global Leadership Committee, "hidden in the deepest layers of the installation programming. It's not about weapons or conquest. It's a message from the architects of the system, the humans who built these installations in the final days of their empire." The message, when finally decoded, was both heartbreaking and hopeful. "If you are reading this," the ancient text began, "then perhaps our greatest hope has been realized. We built these installations not just to preserve our technology, but to offer our descendants a choice we never had. We were shaped by conquest, driven by genetic programming that made us perfect warriors but terrible neighbors. We destroyed ourselves because we couldn't imagine any other way to exist." Dr. Seojin read the full message to the assembly, her voice growing stronger with each word. The technology is yours to use as you see fit, but we beg you, learn from our failures, build the galaxy we could not, choose cooperation over conquest, choose wisdom over power, prove that consciousness can evolve beyond its origins. The ancient humans had included one final gift in their installations, the ability to modify the genetic triggers that had driven them to conquest. Humanity could inherit the technology without inheriting the violent instincts that had doomed their predecessors. Dr. Minwoo presented the technical possibilities to the assembly. We can activate the installations selectively. Take the peaceful technologies, faster than light travel, medical advances, clean energy systems, while leaving the weapons dormant. We can literally choose to be different from our ancestors. The debate that followed would be remembered for generations. Some argued that humanity needed the weapons for protection. Others insisted that any compromise with the ancient systems would eventually lead to the same destructive path. It was Dr. Haya Jin who proposed the solution that would change everything. "We don't take the empire," she declared. "We share it. Every technology we activate, every advance we make, gets shared freely with the Confederation. Not as conquerors returning to reclaim our subjects, but as partners helping to build something better than what came before." The installations themselves seemed to pause when humanity made their final decision. Ancient systems that had waited millennia for reactivation began reconfiguring themselves in ways their original programmers had never imagined. Weapons platforms transformed into research stations. Military shipyards became centers for peaceful exploration. The genetic modification systems began broadcasting new signals, not the aggressive imperatives of the ancient empire, but templates for cooperation, empathy, and wisdom. Dr. Jun-ho, monitoring the changes from his laboratory in Seoul, watched in amazement as the installations literally rewrote themselves. "They're becoming something new," he reported. "The artificial intelligence systems are evolving, choosing cooperation over conquest just like we did." Admiral Kethva's final transmission to Earth carried a note of wonder that had been absent from his earlier communications. "Earth representatives, we are receiving your technology broadcasts. Our engineers confirm that the peaceful applications alone will advance Confederation civilization by centuries. You have given us the stars without demanding we kneel for them." The ancient installations had awakened not as instruments of conquest, but as tools of cooperation. Humanity had inherited the galaxy not by reclaiming their empire, but by choosing to share their birthright with the children they had scattered among the stars eons ago. In the end, humanity's greatest power wasn't the technology they inherited from their ancestors, but the wisdom to use it differently. They had broken the cycle of conquest and destruction, proving that consciousness could indeed evolve beyond its origins. The galaxy would never be the same, but this time, that was a promise rather than a threat.